everybody. My name is Frances Castaneda-Dice, and I am president of the Houston East End Chamber of Commerce. And it's an honor to welcome you to our COVID-19 business webinar today on May 12, 2020. We've got another great topic for us to discuss with you and two wonderful speakers that you're going to be hearing from. We know that you've got a lot of questions, legal questions out there of what you do with contracts that are going on right now with rent, et cetera. So we've got someone to answer some of those questions and give a great presentation. But then we also have Liz Lara Carreno, who is with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And if you haven't heard of this program, her contact information will be at the very end so that you can make sure to keep in contact with her. But she is the Director of Marketing and Outreach, and she is going to be talking about client development and retention, 30, 60, and 90 days here on out. And right now is such an important time to take charge of where your situation is right now. Don't give up. There's a lot of resources out there, and Liz will be able to explain those resources for you. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you to Liz Lara Carreno with Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. Liz, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Frances, for including me in this. And, at a time where we've got, so many changes, but there's so many opportunities out there. My role is as outreach director, but I will tell you, we had a class that recently graduated 2 weeks ago. That was our cohort 27. And we finished that program online as most of our other sites did. And although I'm outreach director, our outreach attempt is in a different platform now. So it's really working with our partners. But more importantly, it's really shifted to supporting the alumni that we have here. We've got over 800 alumni in the greater Houston market. And we've also had a number of candidates that have applied and partners that we've developed our relationship with. And so really it's been about how do we get our folks back up? And so the idea of your 30, 60, and 90-day plan is certainly something that is very relevant. A little bit about, my approach, and a lot of this will come from some of the mods that we present, but it is also what we've been experiencing through all the phone calls that we've had in the last 2 months, well, actually since January. In our eyes, a customer is a customer, whether they are internal, your employees, or whether they are external. So for us, the plan includes just clear communication, and where you were maybe in the beginning of January 1 is not where you are now. So really taking a look as part of the leadership team, how you're communicating that direction. And second, communicating what the capabilities are for your company. That has changed, that landscape has changed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Go ahead. We are really focused on being strategic, and it is more important now than ever because you want to reduce the risk of any further financial hits. Before we were able to throw that wide net and hey, let's see who comes in. Well, most companies at this point don't have the means to do that anymore. In terms of talent, in terms of capital, and in terms of who's out there in terms of customer base. So a couple of things that we always go back on is that we always tell everybody, our business owners, bring out what your strategic plan was for 2020. What was the vision, meaning that's part of the long-term plan, mission, what are you delivering every day? And then what were the goals to actually get there? So we tell them, don't throw that out the window. We're actually going to go in and kind of redefine that. Competition, that industry has changed. Who's still standing after this? So that's also going to take a reassessment. And then the client base, you really need to prioritize that because you're in this situation, they're probably in that same situation. So how much of that, what percentage of that client base are you going to get back? And what relationship do you have with them now? Go ahead. On the 30-day plan, this is going to be addressing both internal and external. And I work in quarters. Everything is first, second, third, and fourth quarter. First quarter's out. What can I do at this point now that things are opening up? So the 30-day plan is we're going to take a look at process, people, and procedures. Who can I actually bring back at this time? Who do I really need? And are my procedures still the same? We all know that a lot of the, what do I want to say? Not just capital, but materials and access uh, uh, has changed. And then product competition. So assessing that, I think that many of the industries are now publishing their papers on the impact of the industries. And I will send you also an email for you to include on who's actually making those recent publications of numbers. Go ahead. The 5-year plan, as I said, doesn't go out the window, but what you delivered versus what you can deliver right now. And everyone has that hunger as Liz, I got to get out there. I got to start making money. Well, just because you opened up your doors doesn't mean that they're going to be coming in. So you really need to take a look at what it is that you're able to deliver with who you have. Because if you had 20 employees and you can only afford to bring in 5, then how much are you actually going to be able to ramp up? It's not any different than when you respond to an RFP. What are your capabilities at this point? Because if you get your clients back and you can't deliver, then you really will probably either lose that client or feel the impact. Earlier when I talked about quarters, assessing what was the impact in that first quarter, we're in second quarter, so we're going to take a look at how we adjust and really assess the means at our disposal. The third quarter is we're going to be measuring what that path is that you have created, meaning I've been able to bring in, I've identified 10 clients and I'm able to start again. And how do we begin to increase our production with them? And then fourth, reassessing. Maybe you were looking at bringing in 5 million by fourth quarter. Well, we know those numbers aren't going to happen. But right now you need to think of what are my processes? Well, who are my people that I actually have to bring in because I need to keep my company up and running. And if that means putting everybody at part-time so that they can have a job by fourth quarter, then we'll do that. But really, it's being realistic because that wide net is no longer really something that you're able to do. On the 60-day plan, it's about assessing and evaluating, once again, that current process and evaluating the change. And on the evaluating the change, that will be one of the documents that, as I said, in my 30-day, what the trends are in your industry. I shared with you before this that I'm participating in the Amazon small business. And it is where companies are reassessing what they are producing and the services that they are providing. And how do I now present it in a wider platform? So companies that weren't even thinking about using that platform, I mean, it is now a part of their business plan. And if it hasn't, it now needs to be. We have a couple of companies that are distilleries here in Houston, and they were the first to participate in turning from making whiskey to making hand sanitizer. So for them, it's how do we keep our business open, take a look at their means, and then let's move forward. Those are the things that you really need to assess, not what do we do? Nobody's buying my one product. It is about making that change and being innovative if you want to survive. And that's going to come down to how hungry you are to change. Go ahead, please. So part of this evaluation is being adaptable. And I have had some companies that aren't ready for that change or not ready. They've been making maybe the same recipe or have had the same clients for years and years. And that's going to be, that is a wall that they are going to have to climb. You've got to adapt to the new change, because if you can't do it now, then you're probably not going to be able to do it in future changes, because things are not going back to the same. Being agile is how quickly can I get this done? So with those two words, it's where are we, and really assessing what happened in my 30 and my 60 days. What are my means? Where do we want to go? Meaning, what was that vision? What do we need to do, which is my mission, what I do every day, and who do we need to bring in? And how do we need to do it in terms of my process? And once again, how am I going to measure that? Go ahead and change. So when I talk about transforming experience to expertise, when you make that call to your to your clients and understanding. And really by now, there should have been some form of communication with all of your client base, whether they were buying from you or not. And if not, then you've really got some ground to make up. I will tell you, most of the e-blasts that have been coming from chambers and businesses, whoever had my business card has been reaching out to me in the last 45 days. So we know that they're ramping back up. And if you've not done that, then you really need to sit down and spend a week and figure out how you're going to begin to communicate with that personal touch and saying, hey, Francis, I'm checking on you. I want to let you know that our doors are open. What is the one thing that we can support the chamber in? Because we want to make sure that you're okay, and how do we get back on track with you to support your company and their needs? So really that personal, because companies respond with that emotion. And so they're going to be looking for that versus just a blanket. And it goes beyond, our heart goes out to everybody. You know, everybody's making those statements. What you're looking at right now is a template that I use. I brought this into the Goldman Sachs about company goals and performance, and how one impacts the other. When people think about vision and mission, they think, oh, they're pretty words on a website. No, no, no. You are the ship of this captain, and this is the chart. This is the course that you have charted, and how everybody knows what they're doing. So in this example on the upper left, it says, business owners should write your 2020 goals. Well, they did that around December and communicated it to their, to all of their team members. And this is how they are going to actually achieve. So for my goals, I just made up 4. I made up 4, which says company has 4 goals. The first one is to become the industry benchmark. The second is to generate 5 million of the market share. The third one is to install a CRM system and connect all my departments. And then my fourth one is create internal leadership development requirements. So the second phase, as you can see where it says create quarterly initiatives, create initiatives to increase current. As they go down, it is each level of management and employees. So these are the 4 goals. On your left where it has management has 4 goals, team has 4 goals, is how everything was going to get done. The bottom where it says performance management in yellow was how I was going to be measuring my success of each of those goals on a quarterly basis. Are you with me, or have I lost you?
No, I'm intrigued. Keep going.
Okay, so it's just I'm visual, so I needed people to understand that, once again, your vision is not pretty words on a website. It is, where do I want to go with my company that has my name on it? My mission is what your employees, when they walk in the front door, what do I deliver on a daily basis? And my goals are how I'm going to get there. And performance management is how I track whether my people are doing their part in making this happen. So, and then since that's what this particular image is, if you'll go to the next one. My 90-day, and my 90-day, as I've gone through this piece here, my first 30-day was looking at my process and my procedures, and understanding where I am with my company. My 60-day was about evaluating where I am, where I had my strategic plan, you know, the chart, the course that I have charted. In my 90-day, I need to now optimize that. So if I'm looking at May, April, May, June. So May and June, we're in second quarter. By beginning of third quarter, my 90-day plan should be optimized. And that is initiate my action plans, meaning what my new goals are going to be, and how what my new mission is going to be, if it has now changed because of this, and the goals that are going to allow me to achieve that, and implement those new strategies and procedures. So I am tracking this on a calendar. And as I said, I function in quarters, even in my personal life, you know, what I want to be able to achieve, because I know in the 3 months, whatever I do, it's going to impact the next month. And that is in every aspect of my company branding, my income and how many people I'm going to be able to keep on my payroll. If you'll go ahead and change. So in my 90-day, I will have prioritized my database for key clients, which are the most lucrative, loyalty, and that works both ways here. So begin to identify who I'm going to go after and who I'm going to go after really hard. And I will give you some resources for you to actually create that. Product and services, old and potential new products and services. So if my company says, Francis says, I really don't need this anymore. I'm looking for somebody that can do that. Francis, we can do that for you. We know your business and we can certainly make that adjustment for you. So let's talk about what you need, how much you need, and when you need it. So it's really assessing what that need is. So earlier when I said about communication, personal emails, personal phone calls, you can tell by my hair color, I'm of that certain age where I never thought about phone calls being so important because we got into the age of technology, email and text. Well, I will tell you, when somebody calls me and says, I just want to check on you and see how you're doing. Oh my God, it's a hallmark moment because somebody made an effort to find out how I'm doing, what do you need, whether you're going to pay me or not. I'm finding out, what do you need, Francis, to keep your doors open to do what you're doing? Because you're going to remember that. And I want you to know that I am here for the long haul for you. So that's what I mean when it comes to building that loyal base. You want to be able to communicate that you are in operation and how can I best support your company? And you want to track that communication because you just don't want to do it once and go away. So that 30, 60, and 90-day plan, I am tracking how many times I communicate you and how I communicate and the conversation that I had. So I may have given you something free and then I may have sold you something small, but it's going to continue. So that's how I keep up with my 30, 60, 90-day plan when it comes to EECOC. So this is a similar template, only now it is a new one. So I have wiped it clean because now where it says company goals 2020, new plans implementation second quarter. So company has 4 goals where in the beginning in white, it says becoming industry benchmark. Well, now it's raising my customer service. Well, it was creating customer service ratings by 25%, but now it's creating an exceptional support for my clients. That's what I now need to go back to. On the second one, where my goal was generate 5 million, my goal now is to retain current clients and acquire new ones because there's going to be potential new ones, especially when your competitors aren't all coming back. So who's out there? My third goal was originally to tech upgrade to meet new demands. Well, guess what? Now it's simply, which are now considered essential, Zoom, CRM, how I'm actually tracking that. And it's the best time for you to step into that so that you can become a little more strategic and minimize your risk. And then my fourth goal was essential training required in today's market. I want to identify the talent that can go through my online training and is considered an essential member for me to go forward. One of the things that we tell our business owners that the people who started with you may not be the people to take you all the way through as you write your growth strategy. You may be in a position now, even and where based on what you need to do for your company, because it isn't just about you, it is assessing who are the people I need right now that are going to take me into third and fourth quarter. And those that can begin, that are adaptable and are agile. So that's one of the things that I want you to look at. And then again, you'll be able to continue writing down what those goals are. I cannot even begin to tell you how many sales and strategy plannings, sales pipeline management and sales management softwares there are online. I probably I stopped counting at about 20 for each one that are free. 2 of my favorite blogs are Badger Mapping and HubSpot. They provide quite a few free, not only the templates, but the PowerPoints and the instructions for you to take your team through. I'm a big research nerd, and I'm very much about not just learning myself, but I want my team to be better. So I want them. And if I had a team in a business, I would probably say, okay, two of you in my sales and marketing, go out, come back with some resources and tell me what you got. You're going to find out how adaptable and how agile and how hungry they are. So they are part of your company. And I really say this because I don't want you to be, as a business owner, the only one that has to come up with the ideas. That's why you've got a team. So now determine who needs to be there. Your client base is crucial. If you'll go on to the next one. And Francis, on that last slide, one of the things that I want to point out is I'm just going to send you an email with various links to it that you can share and have on your own platform. I want to say one of the websites, ICIC.org, which is Initiative for Competitiveness in Inner Cities. That's what their job is. How do we get small businesses up and running? Those that are at or below the revenue levels. And so they have brought in a very large number of financial institutions as well as resources so that you don't have to come up with templates. You know, you need to just think of the content you're going to fill in, but it gives you the structure for a lot of businesses that don't know where to start. In the client base, I will tell you that a number of my alumni that have gone back out for products and services are reaching out. They have started, like I said, the 30 to 40 day in the communication. But it's that slow step because everybody was waiting on, nobody could talk to anybody unless it was about COVID money. Where's my money? Where's my money? And we actually did a webinar on that. Where's my money? So we were able to tell them how to track that, and don't count on just one institution. Apply wherever you can. And by the way, I have the top 10 financial institutions that have supported Houston businesses that have done really great, as well as SBA. But I will send you that link for more resources that have the templates for 30, 60, and 90-day plans, strategy, and management. I do want to just say we did postpone our summer cohort. And what we're doing is we're making a larger cohort for the fall. So we opened up our application deadline till June the 4th. And we're inviting as many people. We're really taking a harder look, a softer look, I should say, at some of the applicants, because for us, you know, Goldman Sachs came in with 50 million. They were here when Harvey hit. We're not going anywhere. We're here to keep our small businesses up and running. So that's what's most important to us. If you'll go to the next slide. I'm on all the social media at Liz Lara Carreno. Please look me up, email me. You can even email me at liz@lizlaracarreno.com. But I will be sending you, Francis, so that you can share with all of your business owners the different resources that we've been able to put together.
Perfect. And this
presentation
will live live on our website if you allow us to put your presentation,
yeah.
But we'll also add the links that you are recommending down below.
Perfect. What I'll do is I'll add the links to one of these slides, and then that way it'll be all together.
Good. And then this presentation will live live on our website if you allow us to put your presentation,
yeah.
But we'll also add the links that you are recommending down below.
Perfect. What I'll do is I'll add the links to one of these slides, and then that way it'll be all together.
Good. And then I've got a couple of questions before we go on to Craig. But what specific strategies or approach would you recommend to build up businesses from my existing customers?
You know, one of the things about customers is that customers is about relationships. You know, how did you get that customer in that first place? And if you're in this situation, then they're in that situation in their industry. So I am very much about that personal approach. And so I think if I called you, Francis, and said, Francis, you know, what can I sponsor for you? Versus you asking me, that would go a long way with you. So I think for us, it's, for me, I would have the database I have my database. I begin to reach out. I take a look at what it is that I've been providing for them in terms of products and services. And again, that's a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And what have I providing? What can I provide for them right now if I'm not at full capacity? So that's crucial. And say, I'm able to provide this for you. Tell me what you need. And if I can't get it for you, I can tell you who can. And to me, that would let you know that your business is just important as their business. So really building that piece there. But, you know, if you're selling just that one widget and they don't need that widget anymore, then you need to come back and say, here's what else we're providing. But I'm also going to assess that by tell me what your needs are. What's the one thing that I can support you in? So you're not thinking of 100. I said, Francis, what's the one thing I can help you with right now? Mm-hmm. And then they're going to tell you because they now focus on that one thing. So that right there, and then begin to capture, and then they'll start talking. And that's where you need to respond immediately, not wait a long time, but respond immediately to what they need. Even if it's something that you didn't provide, is it something that you're able to partner with somebody else and say, hey, I've got clients that need what you have. Do you have clients that have what I need? So we have a lot of our business owners that are doing that right now. So let's, you know, to me, that's that collaboration more than anything that's going to be key for you to ramp up.
Great. And we got time for one more question, and we're going to leave the other questions up here so we can ask them together. But how do you handle discounts on your services? And is it effective sales strategy in this crisis economy?
I don't know if discount is the right word. And I don't even know that that word should be used right now. So part of your 30, 60, 90-day plan, when I said vision and mission and your goals here is, you know what your operating cost is. Your goal isn't to go out of business. So when I said, what are you able to deliver? What is your capacity? So if I need to readjust my costs, it's supply chain management, you know, where I had that senior moment. Your supply chain management is not the same anymore, okay? That has been impacted. So you are probably going to be dealing with some higher costs. So at this point, you need to figure out, here's what we're providing, and here's our current price. And some of the industry trends that are giving the reports are, whether it's in retail, I think it's total retail report, automotive, in the food industry, all of those right now are providing what the trends are and how their supply chains are being impacted. So you can get a lot of average numbers from that. But right now, I don't know that I would use discount. I'm saying, you know what, here's our current cost. You know, as we're coming back in the market, we know what the situation is. And I think with them and having a conversation, if you came back and said, Liz, I can't pay you $1,000 right now, but I can come up with $750 in my budget. Well, I'm not going to say, well, thanks for the discount. I know what your budget, you're telling me that, is that nobody's been able to make money. So I don't know that I would use the word discount. Said, look, let's just work with each other.
Yeah,
that language is going to be very important in building that relationship, because if you're giving me a discount, don't do me a favor right now. I just need you to work with me here. And it's kind of like saving face, and it's kind of respect, and have that conversation that builds, I got your back and you have mine, you know, we'll make it work. We're going to make this work, Francis, because I want you to remember that down the line.
It's great answers. Thank you so much, Liz. But also, anyone out there, I highly encourage you to connect with her. She is just a wealth of knowledge and just passionate about helping small businesses. And I highly recommend you to apply for that fall cohort class. And we'll have a link on our page about that. But now it's my honor to introduce you to Craig Kaiser, who is going to have a presentation on legalities. And Craig is a former board member of the Easton Chamber, and we're so honored to have him. He's with the firm Phillips Kaiser PLLC. And Craig, I'm going to just go ahead and let you take it away.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Francis. And Liz, great presentation. I really enjoyed hearing that. Several of those things resonated with points I wanted to make. Yeah, so our firm, just by a little bit of introduction, we serve the mid-market, small market companies, and serving as general counsel, sort of helping them meet their day-to-day legal needs. So through COVID-19, this whole time, we've seen clients come back with all kinds of questions, from contracts, employment, data security, bankruptcy, all kinds of things. So, these can go all different ways, but the things that we've seen most, and what I was going to touch on, was the point of contracts. And then the second was about a specific part of employment, and that is returning to work issues. So with that, maybe next slide. So before we go, hard legal on this, I guess, I think Liz said, you have to acknowledge this pandemic has had a pervasive effect, and it will sort of come and go. I heard an economist today say it will be a choppy and uneven recovery, even as we go back, and even if things go well. That's just the way this will go. And so I think taking a long-term look is important. But even as we do that, I recognize everybody is in survival mode. What's the next step? And, what is the 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? How do I get to 90 days? And I guess I would just caution, it makes sense, but as you think about that, is just think about, what does survival mean? What does survival mode look like? And it ought not be a panicked thing, but a thoughtful thing. So a few things when you think about, when I'm talking about contracts now, I'm thinking about supply chain, your suppliers, vendors, as well as your customers, and all that you have contracts with. And the first thing I would say is over communicate with your supply chain and your customer base. There's a tendency sometimes to not want to, not want to have those hard conversations. But I would say that you're much better off to know where you are with your suppliers, with your customers, and that they know where you are. I think that facilitates trust, and it also facilitates a lot better decision making. So need to be very communicative, so you know where people stand. This is a little preachy maybe, but I think you should come at it with an idea of serving other people. How can I serve? And I think, like Liz said, it is with the idea of, and down the road, this will strengthen our relationship, and you'll look, we may advance our partnership through this difficult time. And the mindset, though, needs to be one more of service than, I've got to protect my turf. The third thing on this is to start thinking now about where things are going. The supply chain may not look the same forever. I had never been on a Zoom call, I don't think, until about 8 weeks ago. Now I can't go a day without being on 1 or 2 or 3. So things change, and they will change in your business. And so thinking thoughtfully about that, even as you work through your contract issues of today, is a good idea. Okay, so following that sort of overview of how I would suggest looking at, this survival mode, let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about a little bit more about now what to do. And I guess I should go back and say, somebody had a great line. They said, don't waste a good pandemic. And that is, this is a time to really assess where you are, and do things need to change. And some things probably should have changed. And this is a good impetus to do that. So think that way. All right. So when you look at, the first thing you need to do is, when you look at where you stand as a business vis-a-vis your contracts, you got to look at your contracts, and you've got to look at those, all those relationships you have in contract. And then, like I said, start communicating. But things that you should avoid are being overly legalistic. Funny to hear that from a lawyer, but I had a client reach out. Actually, it's not a client. They come to me for a second opinion because they had done this at the advice of a lawyer. They are a subcontractor, and they had sent a notice letter to the general contractors they were working with. And this was early on, like maybe late March. And the letter said, hey, we're here, but if things, this is a strange time and we may not be able to perform, or if we think it's an unsafe situation, we will not, send our workers out there. It was very setting the stage of, if we can't be there, we're not going to do the work. Well, surprise, surprise, the general counsel, general contractor came back on 3 of those 4 companies and said, are you telling me you're not going to perform? Do I need to find somebody else? And the sometime client was very concerned. And I said, yeah, if you can perform, don't send that letter. So it's sort of, she was out ahead of it too much and too legalistic. And again, this is where behind the contract should be a relationship. And I would keep that in mind. And then the second thing, fits in with one of Liz's comments, was don't look real narrowly at your solutions. When you look at your contract, yes, it says what it says, but be creative, be thoughtful. Is there new business to bring into the relationship? Are there, what things you can do? Be creative, which is what Liz talked about. Be adjustable, I think was actually her word. And that's very important here as well. And I guess along that line, the last thing there is consider the value of sometime letting, if it's not you, but the other party who's having a hard time performing, consider waiving or amending a provision because that can facilitate stronger commitments down the road. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a slide talking about a force majeure. And force majeure is a clause in most contracts, and it is almost never implicated. It's sort of just set to the side. Where it does come up more is in, I would say, international contracts, a lot of times in my experience, but it's there for a reason, and this may be one of them. So the force majeure clause is one that says if something, and it's called act of God, or it may list extraordinary events, things like hurricanes, political unrest, labor unrest, and it could have epidemics, plagues. It's got those kinds of things in the clause in your contract. If one of those things occurs, then either one or both of us are forgiven from performing on the contract. I don't have to deliver the goods until this force majeure event passes by. And so this would absolutely seem like the place where you would want this. You had to shut down your factory. You can't deliver the goods. That's a force majeure event under your contract. But you have to be careful here because a force majeure clause is a contract provision. It's not a law, in a statute. It's just the contract between me and you. And so whatever it says is what it says. So if you list a number of things that are force majeure events, those are what will be forgiven. And I don't think people were putting the word pandemic into agreements. I had never seen that word before. But things like epidemic, plague, those might be ones you could argue for. And sometimes there is sort of general catch-all language that can also be utilized. It may list a bunch of things and then say, or other similar events. And you might be able to argue that, but there you're relying on a court to see it how you see it. Anyway, that's the idea of a force majeure clause. It's just events beyond the control of the parties, and it prevents them or excuses them from performing. So I would say look in your contracts for that, and the language matters, okay? How force majeure is defined, that it has to be something that's outside your control and that it's unforeseeable. Okay, next slide. And then even if it is a force majeure, the reason you need to read the provision is not just the definition, but a lot of times there will be a notice requirement. You can't sit on that. The force majeure event happens, your factory is closed, but it may say you have to let the other party know within, 10 days, 30 days that this has happened, so that, they can respond and adjust. So make sure of any notice requirement in there. And then there is often a requirement you've got to use due diligence or effort to overcome the force majeure. You can't, it may not be enough just to say, oh, force majeure. There may be also language in there that says, but you have an obligation to go find another way to perform on this contract. Your factory's closed, you may have to go get this done by a third party, subcontract them to deliver, So those kinds of things are in there. And then the other thing is, if you are the party, if the other party can't perform for you, it may also be on you as the recipient to find ways to minimize the damage caused by that force majeure to you. So those are all things. So the bottom line on this provision is it does come up, but the language matters, and you need to really study that or get with a lawyer actually to talk about that. The one other thing I'd say that's similar to this area that's come up for me is business interruption insurance. People have that. And there again, the language matters on, is this covered or is it not? And so far, I've had 2 clients come to me with their policy, and both times it did not, insurance did not cover for a pandemic like this. So, all right, now I'm going to pivot and talk for just a couple of minutes about employer liability as we start going back to work and going, we're no longer remote, and we're back to work. And even as we do that, employers are not let off the hook on employment law, workplace laws that exist, and even as they're colored by this coronavirus situation. And there have been lawsuits today. Walmart has already, I know they were sued by an employee who said they'd felt that Walmart had been negligent in providing a safe workplace, and the person had contracted COVID. And in fact, actually that person had died, and it was the estate bringing the claim. So that's a kind of thing that can happen. And then I know there was a Broward County, Florida Sheriff's Office. Someone had raised a concern to the employer about unsafe conditions and lack of adequate process to protect the workers. And then that person was disciplined. And so it was a whistleblower claim. So these kinds of things can come up. All right, so a couple of specific areas to talk about. One is this discrimination. So, obviously you can't discriminate against people national origin. If back in the early on, it was sort of like if someone would say it was of Chinese descent or something. Well, this came from China. Well, you can't require undue testing on people of that ethnic background, or which seems kind of obvious, but it is a thing to pay attention to. Or if it was from Italy, Italy has had a big rise in that. Those kinds of things. However, I will say, if someone has traveled to places that are high risk, it is absolutely acceptable to say, we're going to require that you, wait an allotted time to come back, or that you get tested. That's okay. But just on origin alone, no. Tricky. I'm not going to touch all these, but on age, that's a tricky one, because just because older people are, scientists are saying, is higher risk, but that doesn't mean that you can bar people from coming back because of their age. Now, you may want to consider things like having them work, if they can work from home, that's good. If they need to be put in a more carefully, segregated place to avoid exposure, that can be done. Shift work, shifting hours, all those kinds of things, those accommodations. Same would be true on the disability and perceived disability, higher risk due to the pandemic, to the virus. It again, just is, you have to have a reasonable accommodation exercise that you go through before saying someone cannot come back in. On the parental and caregiver status, you need to be careful. Just because someone is a parent of, let's say you're trying to bring employees back a little at a time. It's not reasonable to assume that just because someone has children at home that they would come back later, that they can't come back as early as others. And you need to really work through a process and not discriminate just because they're a parent and have children at home. Okay, next slide. Okay, this has to do with wage and hour laws. If you have people teleworking still, you really have to be vigilant about non-exempt employees, that's hourly workers. And they need to record all their time, and they need to request permission for overtime. And I think you'd be well served to even communicate that in writing if you have people teleworking, just to underscore that again and create that record and have systems to track that. The second one there, reviewing job descriptions. If people's jobs change, and they do in this, like, hey, could you go ahead and handle this and that? If the jobs change, does that change what their role is? And then also you need to look at, if people are working remotely, is it effective? Both as an individual person and as a position. Can that be done effectively remotely? And sometimes they can't, but you need to document that. Finally, on this one, I did come across the furloughing. If you do furlough people, that is, put them out. You're not terminating them, but you're putting them out of work for a time. If they're exempt employees, that is a salary type employee, those have to be done for at least a week at a time. Okay. And the problem is, if you start saying, well, I want you to work half a day here, or, you know, take off this day or every Wednesday, it starts looking like hourly work, and you may have slipped them over into a non-exempt role. So you need to do at least a week at a time. And then if you do it, don't bring them back for a meeting, because then you have to pay them for that week. So wage and hour, you got to be careful with. Okay, last slide maybe, is on whistleblower. I mentioned this earlier, and this is employees, you know, raise concerns with authorities, OSHA, whoever, about health and safety. And those, if you have an employee who is concerned about health and safety in this time, and there will be heightened awareness, you need to take that seriously. You need to investigate it, and if appropriate, take, you know, really prompt remedial measures. You need to communicate about what you're doing there, that you have taken it seriously, you're investigating, and you're going to remediate as makes sense. And this is that sort of that Broward County claim. You know, and then of course, don't retaliate for somebody complaining. Take the information, even if it seems unreasonable. You've got to go through a step of looking through that and determining, you know, do you need to do anything? And then finally, sometimes people who are raising complaints are in a situation where they might be coming up on a discipline action. And this ought not tie your hands if they are complaining, but you need to be very clear to follow your employment process. If you're disciplining somebody, terminating somebody, and they happen to have raised a concern, you need to have very good documentation that says the disciplinary action is tied to a specific conduct, and it is not the fact that they were concerned about some security issue or safety issue. So those are just a few things. I mean, gosh, like I said, in the legal area, you can go down all sorts of paths, but the contracts and employment have been the ones that we've certainly seen the most of.
Thank you, Craig. And if you have questions, those who are on this webinar, please put them in the Q&A section. But Craig, this is helpful information. I also wanted to remind everybody here that a lot of small to medium businesses may not have a permanent general counsel on their staff. and a company like Phillips and Kaiser will be your outsourced legal team. And I highly recommend Craig and his partner. They are just a wealth of knowledge, very smart, and I learned some new things today too, Craig. But if we don't have any other legal questions, we're going to bring Liz back on. And then I've got a couple of questions for all of us. You know, Craig, as a business owner, how has, and again, some of the people that are out there, I also see Rebecca Roberts, who is a female business owner, and could be a great candidate for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And again, as a business owner, what are the benefits, or I'm sorry, what have you had to see changed in what you're doing to adapt to COVID-19? You know, again, Craig, working from home, different things like that. What have you have seen differently?
Well, I think mine would be common to most people. It is definitely remote. It's the Zoom technology I have found to be very helpful. I do think face-to-face that way does help. But I totally agree with Liz. I don't have the hair color you mentioned. I have the no hair, but I do absolutely have a mind that speaking is very important at a time like this. You know, the voice is important, and visual can be good. But that's the biggest thing. And then really intentionally communicating, maybe not so much in the normal rhythm, a little more frequently with clients, touching them a little more frequently is a good thing to do.
Great. And this question can be a good one for both of you. And we'll start with Liz, but what tips can you share to help business owners and leaders help them identify new paths or directions for their organization? Liz, we'll start with you.
I'm not sure if I answered that on I went through and I was answering as many as I could on the Q&A.
Good.
Most of our, you know, the premise behind the Goldman Sachs is that everyone has their specialty. You know, we have artists sitting next to concrete pourers, sitting next to CPAs, sitting next to bakers and roofers. So everybody has the expertise, which is why you got into business. And that's something that you love doing. The sole purpose of the Goldman Sachs program and why most businesses tend to fail is their operation, and creating a sustainable operation that can take them through the peaks and the valleys. And every business is going to have it. We do not promise that everybody is going to have a peak, but how do we create a strategic plan, not only for growth, but for you to be able to sustain yourself as you are going through this change here. So as you are looking for paths, you know, as I said, what are my means here? What equipment do I have? And, you know, people who are now selling the mask or creating something that they never thought that they could do. Listen, I went online trying to buy a sewing machine and there's nothing to be found. So everybody's gotten in on the act and, you know, making them, it's now a new business. You know, I know a couple of my alumni who were selling them in the health industry, which they never did before, but the need was there. And so I think that you really need to step in and take a look at, you know, what is the need, what has taken place. You're seeing the news, but like I said, I'm a nerd in that between Greater Houston Partnership and all the chambers, I tend to go through and start looking at what their needs are and how to, you know, reassess. And with whatever equipment I have, what can I turn around and what else can I make with it? So I think it's about not just yourself, but in your team. Go in and reassess the talent in your team. You may have hired somebody to just come in and be your front desk, but come to find out, she can create websites and branding and can get you, she sells stuff online. It's that kind of conversation. In a crisis, you never know who's going to step up. You never know who has what resources or talent. And it's not always the leadership, but it's many times it's the team that is involved there and giving them that opportunity to shine. You never know who's going to step up. And that's kind of what's happened. That's been my experience.
Francis, I'd give you two, I just agree with Liz. I'd give you two examples from clients. One is had a client who's been a struggling coffee brewing business and for a couple of years. And all of a sudden they had contacts in New York, and they flipped that business around and turned it into a hand sanitizer manufacturing operation. And they're having the best 2 months they've ever had. So that's one. And another one was a woman who's in marketing, and well, nobody's marketing right now. You know, they don't, she did event planning. They're not getting together. They're not spending on that. So what did she do? She has, in that business, she has done a lot of importing of materials from Asia. And so she had great contacts over there. So she had to set aside her manufacturing, and she said, but I've got contacts over there. And so she's importing PPE type equipment. So she's doing very well with that. So very much like Liz is saying, take stock of what you have and what you know, and make that adaptable. Take a broad view of what that is, and then be aggressive too about stepping out and having the conversation and seeing if you can make it work for you.
You know, on that distillery, think about it. You now can work with somebody where maybe you were providing, all your liquor was being provided in glass. Well, now I'm working with the plastic companies that's creating those containers for me to pour this in, because they have to be a certain kind of plastic to actually hold that if they're going to go into medical institutions. So, you know, I now have helped another business owner. So there's a way you can spread that love. It has to be collaborative, and then, you know, there's going to be other things that you can do with that. So I think that there's a great opportunity.
Thank you both. That is very helpful information for our listeners. And Craig, I think this question is for you. When is the best time to change contracts, since everyone is being impacted right now?
Well, I think it's a good time to have open a conversation up and talk about where are we and what's working and what's not working, and try to make it a little broader even. This is where I said, don't waste a good pandemic, meaning this is an odd time. And so do we need to revisit where we are? And you can bring in much more. This is a good time to have those conversations, not in a, I'm sorry, I can't do what I'm doing, but I can't perform, but more, how do we make this work reflect reality today? This is a good time for that.
Great.
And you have to have a maverick mindset right now. Okay. Yep. You cannot have a maverick mindset, my husband would make this comment, are you going to drink with the dogs or pee with the puppies, or get out of it altogether? How hungry are you, and who do you need to take care of? So it's going to require you to get out of what is comfortable for you, because you've got employees and you've got a family to take care of.
That's true. And this question, I know, Liz, you may have answered it in writing, but I want to hear it verbally, follows that. The question is, I am so busy trying to run the business. How do I find time to plan goals? And I know both of you, Craig, you may have clients that have this same issue, but Liz, would you start?
I did. I responded to that person, and I said, first of all, they said, his statement was, I am trying to run my business. There's no trying. You either run it or you don't. If I told you to try to pick that pin up, Francis, there's no trying. You either pick it up or you don't pick it up, right? Mm-hmm. So you're running your business or you're not running your business. The second key word I picked up was I. Well, if you're doing this alone, then, the whole purpose of creating the goals, creating that 36-year 90-day plan is you are scheduling your time, you are scheduling your cost, and you know where you're going. When you look at your calendar, that should tell you where you're going. If you've got nothing there, then you're leaving every single day to chance. Two, if you've got employees, then all of this is in your head and they don't know. They need clear direction. Here's our goals and here's how we're going to get there. And like I said, you have to think of yourself as the captain of this ship, and everybody on this ship needs to know what the plan is, because if something happens to you or you're busy being the rainmaker somewhere, they need to know how to keep moving forward. And that requires a plan. And so that when somebody says, I don't have time for that, I always say, you're the perfect person, because that's operational. When someone says, I can't make the plan, that's an operational aspect. Okay. So that's what our focus is. But the sustainability of a business is what either will make it success or it will be its demise. And so that's why it's crucial. So this person, whoever I answer online, email me, and I'm more than happy, to send information, because if you're relevant in this community, then we need to make sure that you stay out there, and that requires some work.
Great. Craig, would you like to add?
I just that you've always got to make time to work on your business and think about, if you're just chasing, what's on your desk, you will not be agile like we talked about. You've got to be able to give some time to stepping back. Getting to a resource like Liz is great, because I think she can provide information that helps you think about it quickly and with some structure. So I don't have anything more than that, though.
Great. Well, you two, I think we're out of time, and everyone, please reach out to Craig and Liz. They're people here in Houston who care about small businesses, who want to help, and I think that you'll find a great partnership in both of them. I wanted to remind everyone that this broadcast will be on our Easton Chamber website, along with the PowerPoint presentations and the links that Liz mentioned, and their contact information. We have started an Easton Strong Facebook page that continues to grow. So if you haven't liked it, please do so you can find out the restaurants that are in our area that are open and other businesses that you can support. If you have any other ideas for future topics, please email me, and my email is right below my face. But thank you so much, you two. We are Easton Strong because of leaders like yourself, and we'll continue to ride this storm and come out stronger.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the work you do.
Francis.
And bye, Romeo. Is that your dog?
That's my recent rescue. So.
Beautiful, handsome. Thank you all.
All right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.